faith of the heart. Nothing's gonna bend to break me. I got stars in the track. No one can eliminate them from my head. Hey. Welcome to Prelude to Ulysses. Fuck, I haven't done this in a while. This is Alex Reed's Ancient Evenings by Norman Mailer. Mammon Noller. I've got faith of the heart. Nothing's gonna bend to break me. I've got strength of the soul. Today we're on chapter 3. No. We're on part 3 of chapter, I think 4 or 5 or 6 or something. Chapter 4, part 3. So we're in the Book of the Charioteer. I don't really remember a whole lot of I mean, this part's a little more boring than the rest. He's like, ooh, I could ride a chariot. I could ride it with no hands. I could ride my chariot with no hands. With no hands. Okay. And he met the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh's like, fuck yeah, bro. That's all I remember so far. He's like asking him some shit. Who knows? Whatever. It's not like I don't like this book anymore, but I have avoided reading anything for about a week because of this chapter being as long as it is. So, here. I've got strength. I wasn't going to write anything down, but the Book of the Charioteer. Part 3A. We're not going to read through this whole 14 pages right now. Can you read that? Chariot. Woo! Alex, if you read 4 pages, you're good. Literally. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can stop on the sentence, I used to wander by myself through the aisles and hear the stones communing with each other before dawn. That can be your last sentence. But I'd like to take a moment to apologize to my hugely growing fan base. It's just getting crazy. All the emails and fan letters. I like the nudes. Keep sending them. I'm going to pretend to not like them when I look at them, though. Okay. Oh, eucalyptus, you're the best. Ancient Evenings by Norman Mailer. Chapter 3, The Book of the Charioteer. No, Chapter 4, The Book of the Charioteer. Part 3. He took me back to Thebes, and I was put in charge of a troop. They took my instructions slowly, however, and years went by. I despaired more than announced my boast that I could show all how to do it, since in the beginning none could, but for one boy of 10, Prince Amenkepshuef, the oldest son of Ramses and Nefertiti. Now I am a little uncertain, said Ta-Nem-Otep. How old was the great Ramses when you first met him? He was married to Princess Nefertiti. Oh wait, what's their voices? He was married to Princess Nefertiti, his sister, when he was 13 and she was 12. And Amenkepshuef was born within the same year. I would think the prince was 8 in the year his father came to Memphis, and that was when Ramses was 21 and Nefertiti 20. It is not easy to think of this great pharaoh as young. He was young on the morning I met him, said Menenhedet, but already the father of a boy of 8, and by the time this boy was 10, he had become the first of all the riders in Thebes to learn control of 2 horses with the reins about one's waist. Although with all I taught him, the prince never thanked me. A most unusual boy, and stern enough to frighten grown men. Still, if not for his young skill, I think that Usermari, Usermari, Usermare, 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 my great Still, if not for his young skill, I think that Usermare, my great Ramses II, I would have been most unhappy with the poor progress of the other charioteers. But he was proud of his son, and forgave me much for that. And the others also learned, I think in shame, and finally they grew able. So he became more pleased with me, and on the day I showed him 20 chariots, who could ride at a gallop across a field, their line of attack even, their reins about every waist, all chariots able to turn on a signal, so that now each was riding behind the other, then turn front again. Yes, he was so pleased that he made me not only his first charioteer, but his equerry, Equerry, which meant that I rode behind him each morning. There was almost never an occasion where he did not go to the great temple of Ammon in Thebes. He attended every morning, and that became my next duty. What a procession we would go... What a procession we would make through the streets. It was not like Memphis, where we went at a gallop. Oh no, we travel no faster than the speed at which foot soldiers run. And two... No faster than the speed at which foot soldiers run. And 2 couriers had to go in front and cry out for the populace to stand back. On we would come, chosen soldiers from every regiment of his guard, each in different colors. The red and blue for the Sherdans, the black and gold for the Nubians, colors I still remember. Then the lancers and mace bearers, the archers, all jogging on foot. And to the front of his horses were the standard bearer and the fan bearer. He liked them to stay just ahead. In Thebes, he would not often ride with Queen Nefertiti. Usually she would follow in her own chariot, and I in mine, also alone. And then every nobleman of the palace came behind, followed by charioteers. Hundreds went every day to the temple of Ammon, yet I was the only one allowed to enter the sanctuary with him. There was one morning of all those mornings, Menenhedet went on, that I remember clearly, for it was the day war had declared with the Hittites. There are dawns that speak of how hot the afternoon will be, and this was such a morning. And the light and heat came forward in separate steps, as if on the padded feet of a beast. On the right of the temple, in the midst of the early warmth of that fierce day, one rare cloud came. One rare cloud came toward us, out of the east like a ship from a far-off place. Almost never did we see clouds in the morning, and it covered the sun. I do not think our horses had taken 200 steps before the cloud passed, but my Ramses II said, "At the temple there will be unusual events today." He was not a monarch renowned for the quickness of his thoughts. But then he was as strong as 3 men, and his slow thoughts must have allowed him to hear the voices of gods that more clever men do not. So this pharaoh sometimes knew of events to come. On this occasion he smiled dolefully at his wife and myself, for we had drawn up to him, when he stopped, he rubbed his long, thin, beautiful nose. Tanem-Otep now muttered, "His nose does not appear thin in the sculptures I have seen." I don't think LaCroix is the best beverage for narrating books. What do you call it when you read a book out loud? Is it narrating? Book reader. What job am I failing at horribly right now? Okay. His nose does not appear thin in the job. Book reader? Audio book. It's called Alex Reads the Bible. It's not the Bible. Oh, God. Sorry. Let me have a meltdown real quick. This serves as my mirror. I don't have much mirror in my life. His nose does not appear thin in the sculptures I have seen. Its shape was to be changed at the Battle of Kadesh, but that was later. Now, he said, this day is the beginning of the end for me, yet I will live twice as long as other men. He lifted his elbow and took a... Wait. Oh, so this is the Pharaoh talking. This day is the beginning of the end for me, yet I will live twice as long as other men. He lifted his elbow and took a long whiff of his armpit, as if that was the first oracle to consult. As indeed it should be, said my father. Oh no, he's the pussy. Sorry. The father's voice will be like this. As indeed it should be. As indeed it should be. His dad thinks the armpit is for sure the thing to remark. Whatever. As indeed it should be, said my father. We all knew the truth of this remark. How could the odors that rose from the body of a king not be close to each change in the fortunes of the two lands? My great-grandfather took the leisure to sniff at his own armpit in imitation of Ramses II, and did it with a strong open mouth, as if swallowing half a jar of beer. Then, said my great-grandfather, my young pharaoh having come to a stop, the procession stopped. And that swarm of hundreds of boys who ran ahead of our horses in order to cry up the alarm on every avenue, courtyard, great building, alley, and choked-up slum just back of the grand avenue of Ramses II, named in honor of Ascension but a few years before, became aware, as boys will, how in the tumult of their cries that the Pharaoh was coming, there was now to be heard an absence of echo. The Pharaoh was not coming. The populace, instead of thronging toward Grand Avenue, halted instead to watch the silence of my king. But having contemplated the passing of the cloud and the root of his arm, he had now decided to cross the river and make his sacrifice instead on the west bank. A most unusual procedure. It would take all of the morning and more. The west bank, while never as congested as the east, was even then of the same length as it is today, from south to north, and the new temple was not near. It would take a while to bring up the royal galley and ferry the Nile, not to speak of sending messengers to the high priest of the first temple of the east bank to join us, and wait for that high priest to order his own transport and pick the order of his first and second priests to accompany him. Then all the confusion of such esteemed company having to mingle with lesser priests in the new temple. It could be a most unpopular decision, full of acrimony between the temples. Yet how could he ignore the cloud? I shivered in memory of the chill cast by its shadow. When the pharaoh looked at me, I knew he was waiting for a word, so I said, raising my eyes to the sky, "The cloud has also crossed to the west bank." In truth, the cloud was only moving north, but our great stream took a bend at this point to the east, and that was enough for him. We could go where he wanted to go. We could go where he wanted to go in the first place. The horses started up again, the pack of boys ran ahead, and the people came out of their shops, their kitchens, their workhouses. The girls in the brothels were up from their beds, children were released from the school, and men and women ran in every direction, trying to guess the route. For Ramses II rarely took the Grand Avenue all the way to the temple, but was even known to draw his retinue through many a dirty square that had no more than a few shops and an old shaduf with a leaking pail. It was his way of seeing the city. The populace, as a result, was on the move to guess which streets might be chosen. If correct, they would take up their stand as close to the procession as they dared. A chariot wheel was known to cut off a few toes now and again, and lucky men and women in the front rank had to brace their bodies against the surge of all who could not see from the rear. On this morning, now moving very fast to make up for the uneasiness of that moment, when he did not immediately know his mind, it happened that the crowds pushed too much. There was an unmistakable cry. I heard the screech that lifts from the groin when the great bone of the thigh is broken. Oh, God! And later I heard of some young fellow who lost his leg to a chariot that day. Yet in our hasty march we proceeded until we came in sight of the pylons and flags of the first temple, and could enter on the long avenue that passes the 100 sphinxes who line the promenade. My great-grandfather gave these details with a grimace, as though to apologize for the mention of sights the pharaoh would know well. But I think he described it so in courtesy to me, who had never been to Thebes. Then we entered the gate. Then, as now, many would say that the exterior of the first temple of Ammon, of the east bank of Thebes, is equaled by no building in the world. No forest through which I have passed can summon as many gods as one can hear whispering to one another when the breeze stirs. Ow! Ow! What was that? That pain. Weird. Hey, whoever's got your voodoo doll out, fucking just give it a minute. It happens sometimes. Think if I died. I don't know. Okay. The first temple of Ammon, of the east bank of Thebes. I'm trying to read this whole thing in that guy's voice that I made up for him. The first temple of Ammon on the east bank of Thebes is equaled by no building in the world. No forest through which I have passed can summon as many gods as one can hear whispering to one another when the breeze stirs in the great hall, with its 136 stone pillars, each higher and of more thickness than any giant tree I have ever seen. I would yet go to war in lands where my pride had to grow small before the face of mountain cliffs, the beauty of forest foliage, foliage, or the magnificence of high waterfalls. I would know that foreign gods are great because of the extraordinary shape they can give to the land. But in Egypt, where our country is flat and our mountains, how has he been to the mountains? The fuck mountains has he been to? I don't know Egypt very well. It sounds like an awful place, honestly. Look, no trees? My whole life is about trees. I'm a tree hugger for sure. Here we go. When I die, I hope I come back as a tree. One that falls on people. No. One that... Nah, maybe not a tree. Like poison ivy, that'd be cool. Or like... I guess I just don't want to read. I think that's what's really going on here. I mean, I do, but... whatever. How does Min and Hay get to a place with... whatever. Doesn't matter. And our mountains, by comparison, are low. The gods have told us to build the wonders ourselves, and that has cost us much. Instead of feeling an immense pride at what we have done, we are without pride. We are terrified of our own works. I know no mountain to inspire me with more awe than the great pyramid of Khufu. Interesting. That's interesting. Nor a forest to compare to the halls of the columns of the Temple of Ammon on the east bank. Okay, let's think about our religious ancestors. I mean, it's all Middle East shit. All this Abrahamic religion that composes the majority of religious in the world. Fairly flat, right? No, there's mountains in some of those places, but I don't know. Are they flat areas? It's kind of flat. My thesis is it's flat where the Bible takes place. The Old Testament takes place. I don't know what the New Testament's about. I'm not into that New Age shit. At that point, they were building tents, temples, pyramids, statues, artifacts, or wait, not artifacts. You don't build an artifact. Well, you do, but you don't know it. Just these temples for the gods because of your religious belief. You create these whatever pillars of fucking whatever representation of God or gods it is. Those people grew up like this comment here, not worshiping the majesties of nature in so much as human ingenuity. Man, me no word good today. Fuck shit, motherfucking. So their thought process, instead of God living in the mountains, it's more like God lives in these magical places that we have built. Because they live in a, let's say, boring-ass atmosphere. Now, fast forward. These same ideals and concepts and morals and values and yada, yada, yada of the Western religious folk have now taken sail, floated across an entire fucking ocean to North America, where we have a whole different... I don't even know if it's that different. I've never been to Europe or wherever the fuck those people are from. But traveling to these distant lands Africa, even like, or I don't know what's in Africa, so I won't talk to that. These people are now seeing God with the inclusion of these giant mountains and giant peaks in North America and different landscape. For sure, it's foreign landscape, right? I wonder how different it is. I don't know what's going on in Spain? But they show up and they're like fucking dope ass giant mountains or whatever. And they start moving west and it's like better and better. That's when they see God in the hills. And they say, this nature is representative of the beauty that we created, because it came second to like the pyramids or whatever they always culturally think of as a place of God. They are now seeing that equivalent of fucking majestic shit in North America or South America. And then they think they own everything. They think that it's copying them. What are you fucking talking about? It's not like they think it's copying them. But these religious people have a sense of ownership over that. I mean, it's of course much deeper than that. But perhaps that's a contributing factor. Seeing something that they know their God made. People are fucking weird. What was I reading? Instead of feeling an immense pride at what we have done, we are without pride and terrified of our own works. I know other mountain, well, so I wasn't really even talking about what he was saying. No other mountain to inspire me with more awe than that of the great pyramids of Khufu, nor a forest to compare to the hall of columns in the temple of Amun on the east bank. I'm saying that their shit that they made is cooler than nature there. Okay, whatever. That is all very well, said Tanemotep. Thanks, bro. I gotta shut the fuck up, probably. But the hall of columns of which you speak was only finished by Ramses II later in his reign. There was a great pause before my grandfather replied. To have 4 lives is to live like the passage of the Nile over its cataracts. 4 cataracts have I passed over at my 4 births, and yet it is all one water. That is why I am often in error when I pass each bend. You are able thus to remind me, you of the 2 great houses, that the House of Columns was not finished at the beginning of his reign, yet it must have seemed completed, at least to me, for the roof was then in place, and nearly 100 columns were already erected. Indeed, I used to feel as if I had wandered like a child just being able to walk between the thighs of a multitude of great gods. There is no sound I have known like the rustling of that great hall at night. In my second life as a high priest, I used to wander by myself through the aisles and hear the stones communing with each other before dawn. Let's stick with it. Never stick with it. We're done reading today. So he's just describing his life. Working for the Pharaoh, he has taught a bunch of these mofos his super cool way of riding a chariot, bro. I mean, it's cool. He's taught some people that, but most especially the weird Christian Bale, Patrick Bateman, like child of Ramses II. Jeez Louise. And he's allowed him to be his first charioteer, which means he kind of follows his ass everywhere. He just hangs out, right? And He's just doing that cool guy Pharaoh thing where he's like, I'm not even going to go to this temple today. I'm going to go to the poor people's temple and chill with those cool people. And he's like, let's take whatever route I want to randomly pick. I don't care whose leg we fucking cut off. Gotta practice singing somehow. With some lyrics. The delayed sleep phase type is based primarily on a history of delay. You gotta do an actual beat. The delayed sleep phase type is based on primarily a history of delay in the timing of the major sleep, more than 2 hours in relation to desired sleep, and wake up time resulting in symptoms of insomnia and excessive sleepiness. We're allowed to set their own schedule. Individuals with delayed sleep or grace type exhibit normal sleep quality and duration for age. Symptoms of sleep onset insomnia. Symptoms of sleep onset insomnia. Difficulty waking in the morning and excessive sleepiness early in the day are prominent diagnostic features. Associated features. Common associated features of delayed sleep phase type include a history of mental disorders or concurrent mental disorder. Extreme and prolonged difficulty awakening or morning confusion is also common. That was good. Extreme and prolonged difficulty awakening with the morning. Oops. Extreme prolonged difficulty awakening with more. That's not good. That's the one. Okay. Extreme and prolonged difficulty awakening with morning confusion is also common. Insomnia disorder may develop as a result of maladaptive behaviors that impair sleep and increase arousal because of repeated attempts to fall asleep at an earlier time. Am I describing myself? What is this? Ow. Ow. I gotta stretch my thumb before I do that. Okay, that was enough of that. Ben and Hedit is telling a story about how he kind of climbed the ranks and is hanging out with the Pharaoh, and due to impressing him by teaching his son well, he is now the first charioteer who is on the way. We're currently traveling to what he initially describes as the finished pillars of, I don't know, the tomb of Amun-Ra. Who fucking remembers? I should probably. You just read it. You should probably remember. Whatever. And he is then interrupted by Tan-Imhotep, who says that shit wasn't even done until the end of Ramses II's career or legacy. He's like, oh yeah, sorry man, when you've lived fucking 4 lifetimes, your shit gets fucked sometimes, you know, your memory got stank on it, you know what I'm saying? It's weird to think that your memories might rot. I guess that does happen with time, huh? Like a slice of cheese left out in the open, the mold of time takes a bite and grows. And after 1, 2, 14 weeks, this cheese, this life, this memory of you as a child on a bicycle, it is turned into something else. You are no longer just a cheese on the table. You are doing a wheelie in front of a crowd of people. as you pat yourself on the back for how cool you were. Your brain, and its wrath it produces. It's a beautiful thing. If used correctly, you can trick yourself into thinking you're a much better person than you are. You got to turn into Adam Sandler there at the end. It was almost good. All right, I'm going to be an actor. The end.